Good morning. Love the show. I have a 23-year-old son with autism that has a lot of attention-seeking behaviors, i.e. throwing electrics down the toilet, and then calling me over to show me what he did, breaking items when my husband and I are watching the news, spitting on my husband when he is napping. However, when I give him attention, when he is being appropriate, he puts his finger in his ears and walks away from me. What am I doing wrong? He can read and write at second grade level. Thanks for your help and advice. Again, a 23-year-old on the autism spectrum.
Right, sure. So you're not doing anything wrong. I mean, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know exactly how you're responding to it. Obviously, some of those things, it becomes very, very hard. For instance, when someone throws electronics down the toilet, and then takes you to it, like, it's very hard to not react to that. Obviously, just even going over there and looking is attention. You should perhaps lock the toilet doors, just the doors of the bathrooms, keep them locked, or so that he can't access them, or, you know, I mean, if he needs to go on, then he has to come and take you before, or something like that. Each of these behaviors you really need to address individually. You will need to prevent the behavior as much as possible. And what is happening is he's not just wanting attention, he's wanting control. So what he wants is to be able to possibly, actually, he also wants to kind of tick you off. A lot of our guys do that. And so part of this is it's not just getting positive attention, but it's getting you to be upset.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is a very appropriate sort of teenage type behavior, I guess. So you need to not react, obviously, as much as possible. When your husband is napping, for instance, he should be behind a locked door where your son cannot access him. Wherever possible, those types of behaviors just need to be prevented or completely ignored or blocked. Like, when I say prevented, like blocked, completely blocked, but at the same time, blocked and ignored. So in other words, someone might attempt to hit me and I will block them, but I'll continue doing what I'm doing, okay, so that I'm not addressing it as a particular thing that ticks me off.
Yeah.
And then he is, you know, our kids start to do things that are, I think, much more trying to get our attention in a negative way when they're bored.
Yeah.
So I really feel like he needs to be kept busy. It seems like he gets into mischief when he's not busy. So perhaps it would be helpful if he's actively engaged in something productive as much as possible all of the time. And I know that's very, very difficult, but if you find activities that are enjoyable to him, perhaps, I don't know, swimming, an exercise machine in his room, some sort of musical item, things that are more enjoyable, he will engage in those types of things and stop trying to annoy you. Clearly there's something going on with just trying to sort of do behaviors that get him into trouble with you guys. So as much as possible, having him engage with other people and stay busy with other people, that's the way to go.
I'm really struck by when you talk about the blocking, because I want to encourage people to check out the A word, because you'll see, even though it's it's a very little child, but you will see some opportunities when the therapist will block something.
Right.
And I do think it's a visual kind of thing that you really need to see it to understand what that is. They're continuing to do what they're doing, but they block it, and there's a non-reaction. There used to be a commercial on TV about moms and how moms multitask, and you know, the mom is sitting there and she's taking care of the bills and she's typing an email to someone, and a child is doing something and she reaches out the hand and stops them from swatting the other kid, and then she sticks out her foot with not even looking over and stops the dryer door from opening and hitting the dog, and has all these she's almost like an octopi. She's got all, but she's focused on what she's doing. And that always reminded me of the therapist. The therapists are brilliant at this.
Oh my gosh, they're amazing.
Incredible. And I do think it's worthwhile to watch a good therapist, and there are a couple of times in the A word where you get to see exactly that.
And it's so difficult. I mean, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've trained thousands of people, but when I get into it with my own kids, it's very, very hard to just block a bad behavior, or with a young kid, or any of the kids that I work with still right now who have a lot of high-level behaviors. It's really hard. I mean, you really have to be a therapist, because there's no emotion involved, and it's a very just fluent technique that
Yeah.
they're good at, which is just continuing what you're doing and blocking the behavior or correcting the behavior. I mean,
Yep.
and just continuing to do what you're doing. For instance, in this case, if your child kind of catches you and takes you to the bathroom and there's nothing you can do, the way to make it not so enjoyable for him anymore is to not show a reaction when you see an electronic down the toilet. Walk away.
Yeah.
And just do your own thing and continue talking and continue doing whatever else it is you're doing with other people. It's very, very hard, and so that's why we try to prevent those situations. But when you can't prevent them, you just have to ignore them.
Yeah. But I also want to take just a second to say, a lot of times you see 23-year-old and people assume, oh, well, then you can't do ABA. But that's really wrong.
I mean, this is ABA, and that's what you're doing. Yeah. And in fact, the older the individuals get, or our kids get, the more they tend to have these types of behaviors because they haven't learned really good habits of how to communicate and socialize. And so then as a result, they start really to have a lot of frustration on behaviors. And they just, this is their way to interact with the world in some ways. So then it becomes really important to get good behavior analysis going. You should even, in a situation like this that's really hard for you, this is the type of stuff that any BCBA can help you with.
Yeah.
This is what BCBAs are trained in. You don't need necessarily a card program for this, because we do a lot of other stuff as well. This is an easy aspect for us, is dealing with behavior.
Okay. So don't think that because your child is 23 that you can't reach out and ask for that
Not
help,
at
because
all.
that would be actually a really effective thing to do.
Absolutely, and this is a medically necessary thing as well, because it can become very, very disruptive.
We've got lots of questions today about medical necessity and how to. Trying to take these sort of in an order.
Some order.
Yes. Okay. So, hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. Just wanted to start by thanking you both. You're amazing. God bless you both. My question is, how can I reduce the time my 4-year-old spends trying to make letters with his hands and arms and even talking about the ABCs? He'll say things like P is for Papa, M is for Mom, C is for Cat, etc. He's learning to read some words and even write like 10 different words like dog, mom, wow, dad, etc. That's the good part of all this. If I can give him a coloring book, he'll color for a few seconds, then starts to write letters. And a lot of times they don't make any words, like he'll write H, B, C, P, D, etc. If I give him a notebook, he writes words that can be read and a lot that can't be read too, forever if I would let him. I know there's some really good things about this, and I'm just really stressing thinking about the first thing my 4-year-old talks and thinks about when he wakes up is letters. And she says help with 3 Ps. And sorry for the long question. Never apologize for your questions, and we love more details, so that's all good. And she says, God bless you guys again.
Thank you. That's very nice of you. The good news is I don't think I've ever had a child who has this, sort of attachment to letters who hasn't done well. So let's start with that. It's a good thing. Don't let it freak you out or scare you. It's a good thing, because your child is probably going to develop hyperlexia and is going to be a child who can read and write and just loves the concreteness of the alphabet, the letters, the fact that there's a start and an end, and they're very concrete and nothing abstract about them. So, and that's perfectly fine. What you do is, a lot of what you've been doing is good in terms of you will, essentially, you're going to increase the duration of time doing other activities. So like you said, for instance, he's coloring, set a timer, and even if you increase it daily by 10 seconds or 30 seconds more of coloring, then, within a week it's a few more minutes longer. Within a month it's 10 or 15 minutes longer, and you just do a gradual shaping of other appropriate behaviors that don't involve just letters. However, I would allow the sort of self-stimulation of using letters, but I would restrict it to a time frame. So you narrow the time during which these things are allowed to be done. In other words, You'll have a very set schedule for him, and initially, because he's doing it all the time, you'll start with, let's say, he's 4 years old, so let's just schedule about 12 hours of his day, and in the 12-hour period, I would probably say every hour he should be allowed maybe, let's say, the first and the third 15 minutes. So he's getting 30 minutes of some sort of letter type thing. So free operant conditions. In other words, he's going to be able to do whatever he wants with the letters. He can write them, he can color them, whatever, but it's restricted to 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off, pretty much all day long. That's one schedule. I mean, you can do any schedule that works for you. It doesn't have to be the same every hour. It really doesn't. It's just a matter of getting control over the time frame and getting him to understand that these times you are allowed, these times you're not allowed. And initially, the times that he is allowed are going to be higher. So he's going to have a lot more allowed time than not allowed time. And then gradually, you're going to reverse that schedule. Very, very gradually, you're going to reduce the times that are allowed and increase the times that are not allowed. And then, so sort of the red flag times and the green flag times. And then but always as you decrease this over a long period of time, let's say 6 months, but keep in mind that you're never going to really eliminate it because you want to keep it. It's a high reinforcer for him, and it'll actually end up becoming useful. It's only considered self-stimulatory in nature right now because it's so obsessive, it's so long and lengthy and time-consuming that it deprives him of attending to other things. Once you start to get it to a controllable level, he'll actually start attending to other things more as well and engaging in other things. So it won't really be negative or self-stimulatory in nature anymore. It'll just be reinforcing, and it'll be important to maintain that period of time where he's doing letter activities. Don't worry about the fact that he writes letters that don't produce words. Trust me, he will teach himself reading, writing. He will go heavily into the use of letters. You won't even have to do it. In fact, by the time he's ready for school, he'll be way ahead of his peers in terms of academically understanding letters and labels and all this sort of stuff. Don't be afraid of buying him stuff that's going to encourage that.
Okay.
Like things that have blocks with letters on them that go with objects, or matching cards that have 3-letter words and objects. Don't be afraid of that. This is something he's good at. This is something that he wants to do. Let him do it. All you're trying to prevent is him doing it 24/7.
Okay.
And so you're limiting the time frame.
Wonderful.
And we have a segment on this in one of our previous shows, or two of our previous shows, because I've done this with several kids and I've gone through this. And as I said, it's not something to fear because all of my kids who do this really tend to do very well.
Quality problem. We like
it's
quality
a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have, for
and
sure.
that's good to know, because you wouldn't know that, and all that fear about it. Yes.
I know. I mean, I can't even imagine. Yeah.
What a wonderful thing. Okay, I want to take one of the medically necessary questions.
Sure.
Hi, I'm being told that even though my doctor recommends 30 hours, that their assessment doesn't warrant 30 hours for my 4-year-old because it's not medically necessary.
So tell me that again. My doctor.
So the doctor recommended 30, but
30 hours okay.
30 hours of ABA, and the funding provider, who we know
says it's not necessary,
is Florida Medicaid, and we're going to get into why they're saying it's not. They're saying it doesn't warrant 30 hours for the 4-year-old because it's not medically necessary. They recommend 15, even though he has meltdowns and runs into the street. Please clarify, because the BCBA wants to cut his hours, and we just started, and we've had several people who have written in and said PBS in Florida, and I asked a question about that, and if anybody's watching, I need to know which PBS, because there's more than one PBS. So if you'll write back and tell us which PBS.
What do you mean?
In Florida, apparently there's more than one PBS in Florida.
What is PBS?
PBS is their provider.
Oh,
it's the name of the provider. But I need some clarification on that for a question that I was asking in Florida. So, and we've had several questions in the last month come in about Florida, and we've had some people write in about some of the different funding issues.
I think we just also, and Marcella, if she's watching, can tell us this, but on Mother's Day, she told me that I think we just got some form approved.
Okay.
For Medicaid in Florida, which is like the last form that we need in order to become a Medicaid provider.
Wonderful.
So it seems to be moving ahead. Okay, so to answer this question very quickly, you need the 40 hours. Forget about 30, you need 40 hours, period.
Okay.
The fact that your BCBA is not fighting that issue concerns me a little bit. You have to understand that providers have this conflict of interest going on naturally, where they can't really fight your insurance company strongly for you, or Medicaid, because they don't have a choice and they want to continue to receive other Medicaid patients. So, they don't want to be the bad guy and fight for you. But there's plenty of literature that says 4-year-old with a diagnosis of autism, your best outcome is going to be intensive intervention, and intensive consists of 25 hours to 40 hours a week. So I tend to lean on the higher end because I want to do a good job with my kids. And this is just one of those issues where a funding source is trying to cut funding. Go on the website Autism Research Group, ARG, and they will have all these articles up there for you in support of the fact that you need these hours. If you need any more help than that, send us an email. I will ask our public policy department to send you a list of all the articles. But I mean, this is an old trick. Let me just tell you, you need the intensive hours. Fight for it.
And our Florida contingent had sent us an email. They've got some docs that I'm going to forward right now to Emily, and we'll get them posted today on Facebook so that you can get actual information that tells you how you're going to be able to work with the Medicaid. But she also sent a phone number that you can call. She wants you to know that every county has an assigned ABA coordinator. If you call 1-800-289-7799, 1-800-289-7799, ask for the local area number, and then ask for the coordinator's name and extension email. They're pretty straightforward about getting things done. She said that her whole process took a month, but once you were approved for 40 hours, not less. And it's based on the ABA provider recommendation, so don't settle with one that offers to get approval for fewer than 40.
So if your ABA provider is recommending fewer hours, switch.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of behaviorists saying what's wrong just because I don't know why.
Yeah.
This is wrong.
But she sent 2 attachments, and they specifically, I'm going to tell you that one of them says go to page 17 and you will get a specific quote about hours that you can be eligible for, and the other one that's labeled ABA MC Florida, go to page 14. We'll get those attachments up on Facebook for you today so that you can look at those.
Well, and I also kind of want to see that section too, because I'd be very interested in how Medicaid is doing that. So maybe I can get a hold of that document.
Absolutely. I will forward this to both. When we take a break in just a second, I'll forward this to both Emily and to you so that you'll have those as well. And thank you, as we call them, our Florida contingent.
As always.
For everything that you do, because you're such a great resource.
And you help so many people.
An inspiration to all of us. Okay, we are going to take a short break so we can send those emails out, and then we're going to be back with more questions with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. Stick with us. Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here and she's answering your questions live. I want to get right to a question that we had that came in on Facebook. Somebody wants to know, hi, I have a son who's 24 months and he has autism and brushing his teeth is a nightmare. Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very straightforward and easy process to do. And instead of going through something that would probably take me half an hour to explain, I recommend that you just go on our Skills website, skillsforautism.com, and go in the adaptive section and pull up toothbrushing, and the lesson is there. And it can kind of take you through it. It's a very basic shaping procedure. It's backward chaining, actually, so it's sort of, you will do most of the process and then leave the last step for your child to do, and then he just does one thing and gets rewarded. So for instance, you'll take the toothbrush, take the paste, put it on there, get it wet, have him just put it on his, and then move it up and down for him, and then he does the last bit, or he washes his mouth out and he gets rewarded. And then you backward chain, so you increase the steps he has to do. It's a very easy process when you read it. If he's reacting to it, he possibly has some sort of a sensory, very sensitive in his gums or mouth. Make sure you talk to a dentist and find out, use Sensodyne, use something that's very better for people who have sensitive gums. Yeah. Or perhaps try something that's fun, like for instance, use a electric toothbrush that has music. A lot of the kids have those now and they love them. You don't have to brush for 2 minutes right now at this point. You can brush for much. He's 2 years, so he only has a few teeth too. So
right.
It shouldn't be that hard. Make the process as positive as possible. Give him tons and tons of rewards after this, and do most of it for him. And you are, of course, brushing his teeth. So I think what this parent is referring to is not teaching him how to brush his teeth, but more how to get him to not react.
Right.
So that's just a matter of increasing his reinforcer and reducing the demand. So you really just reduce the process and make it a tasty toothpaste, make it a soft toothbrush, give him a toothbrush that plays music, give him a visual while you're doing it, put the TV on, whatever. Just do what you have to do to make it much more pleasant at first.
Yeah, there's a lot of different kinds of toothpaste that are out there, especially for kids. And one of the things that we've seen with Jem is that anything that tastes like mint is a big sensory deal for him. It's too much.
Yeah.
It's too much.
I can't handle mint either. I just can't handle it. But also,
mint,
it's not just the taste. It could also just be the chemicals.
It burns a little bit sometimes.
Yeah,
it's got a thing to it. So see if you can find something.
Sensodyne for kids, with flavors and stuff. That's pretty good.
Okay, never used that, but we've used a really all natural Jason one that's tangerine flavor that is good, and it doesn't have sugar in it. So making it pleasant.
Make it pleasant
is the key. Okay, pair it with other things and make it pleasant. Yeah. All right, now we had a longer question that came in an email, and it's got some private information that we're not going to share. But basically, a person wrote in and said that their nephew is autistic. He's 4 years old, and he lives in Colombia, and that there aren't very many resources there. And she's got a series of questions. Number one is, how true is it that nutrition can be an impacting factor in autism?
All right, so let me just go through these quickly one by one.
Yeah.
And the parents and the child live in Colombia, so I would love to be able to give them some help in Spanish. We do have some contacts in Colombia. We have people in Colombia who have asked us for training, but we haven't. I think we've done very basic training for them so far. We haven't really done a lot of advanced training, so I'd like to refer you to them.
Okay.
And I think the best way to do that is to go through our Director of Remote Services, John Galley. I don't know that. I think the only way to do that is to actually give you John's email, because I don't think that there's any. John Galley's email is j.galley, Galle, at centerforautism.com. Please contact him, and we will forward your email to him and ask him to contact you with just the reference for the people in Colombia that we started training. We have a pretty big conference this Friday at the Mexican embassy here, I think in LA, and that I think that's being taped, and I think it will be shown also. I'm not sure if the whole thing is going to be shown on Univision. I know we're going to show, we're going to tape it and provide it to the public, but I'm not sure how.
Well, Nancy will be here in the next hour, and we'll clarify all of that with her,
yeah.
because she's the one who's putting that whole conference together. But it is an incredible conference,
and that,
all in Spanish.
All in Spanish, and that's kind of important for you and your family to when that does come out, to record that and show it to your sister or your brother. And to answer your questions, yes, nutrition is a huge impacting factor on autism in my mind. Most people who have a child with autism are doing some sort of nutritional alteration. I can't tell you which diet, because that would have to do with your child's specific biochemical issues and needs and allergies. The most common diet, obviously, is gluten and casein free. And I'm sure if you look into that, there's a lot of information on our website and other websites as well online. Then there's second question.
Second question is, how can we gain his attention when he seems distracted? What exercises can help him? We've tried giving him pictures, but that seems not to interest him.
Right, and that's just too big of a question for me to answer. There's not one or two things that you do. The whole concept of ABA and the intervention that we do with kids is to teach them to pay attention to the right things, starting with paying attention to the adult who's teaching them, but then ultimately teaching them how to pay attention to everything in their environment that they learn from. So really, what might be useful to your family in Colombia is, if they are fluent in English, they could also, if they decide not to go with the people we know in Colombia, they could also use Skills, our website. Skills for Autism has all of the content of what they need. We also have Institute for Behavioral Training, which is IBT, and there they can learn about ABA, and they can also learn about autism and what is ABA and how does ABA help the child improve.
Skillsforautism.com to find skills, and ibehavioraltraining.com to find that the trainings, the IBT. Right. So great resources, and extremely affordable and usable for anybody who has an internet connection. Moving on to her third question, we have read that some vaccines have some form of metals that can increment the risk of autism. Is there a way to cleanse him of these metals?
Right, so some of the vaccines before 2007 in the United States, so it's possible that in Colombia they're still using the older vaccines, would have thimerosal. Thimerosal is not metal, it's a binding agent. And so when you have thimerosal and it adds up, then the child retains metals and has a high level of metal toxicity. It is possible. In this country, what they do is chelation. When there is a very high level of metal toxicity, they will do chelation, which is they basically give the child another chemical that binds to the metal, and then the child will urinate the metals. I really don't know who in Colombia would be doing this. Yes, of course, there are doctors who do it here. It's not 100% common practice with pediatricians because it's dangerous. But it is important to consider metal toxicity. However, on the other hand, since 2007 in the U.S., the use of thimerosal has been reduced greatly. I don't know what the situation is in Colombia.
Right.
But, as I said, there's a lot of information on this if you Google it, on other people's websites.
And some different resources for that. You can go to MedMaps, doctors, that they would have more information about those kinds of things. And we didn't mention for the nutrition, lots of different, there is information on the card site, but also Julie Matthews from nourishinghope.com, great resource. And then her last question is that she herself lives in Florida and wants to know, do you recommend a location that can help with autism therapy or other available resources, especially wanting to work on socialization and communication?
So I can't recommend anybody else in Florida. We've had some pretty negative comments about a couple of other ABA providers in Florida, but we are in the process of trying to open in Florida. We're trying to open in the Naples area, I guess. and which is 2.5 hours from you, 2.5 hours from you. I do have a very good friend and physician in Miami, which is just an hour away from you. That's Dr. Andrew Levinson. His center is called Vitality Health and Wellness, and he's in Miami, and he's fabulous for the metal toxicity issues and anything medical, nutrition. He will definitely be able to guide you on dietary and all that. Behavioral, we can certainly help you with our remote services, which you can read about on our website as well. But
and that would also be John
until
Galley.
we open a place, which is also John Galley.
And just to point out that Dr. Levinson was on Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy 2 weeks ago. If you want to watch that interview, he was amazing.
Yeah, I love him.
He has such a way about him that you just want to be with him and listen to him talk.
Right, which is why he's
amazing.
Which is why he's the officiant for our wedding coming up.
I can totally understand that, because all I could think when he was talking is all the mommies must fall in love with him, and I mean in a nice way, not the leave their husband's way, but just to
awesome.
feel
he's
like
amazing.
So pampered, and he just seems like he's there and present and gets it.
Right.
We love that.
Yeah, totally.
And amazing. Okay, so hopefully all of that information will help you with some resources to figure out whether you want to address this in Columbia or whether they're going to come to Fort Lauderdale. And hand in hand with that, and we've been talking about this, somebody must have just joined us, but the most recent question somebody want to know is, does CARD accept Medicaid in Florida? And I believe you were saying that you think it's just about to.
Yes, we've been working very hard on that, and we're just about to. I hope. I don't know really the status right this minute, but I believe that the last thing that we needed was just approved. So hopefully, I would say within the next maybe month or 2 months, we should be able to receive Medicaid, and we will probably at that point expand a little bit more than just the Naples, Marco Island area. I think we're going to go also do something in Jacksonville, and possibly once we have Florida Medicaid approval, we might open in 4 or 5 centers. We'll see. But if you are wanting to know more information about that, again, I'm going to give out John Galley's name, and his information again is j.galley, Galle, at centerforautism.com.
Okay, remarkable. Okay, next question. My daughter, sometimes calls me by our dog's name and not mom. I try not to respond, but sometimes I do. I think she's just trying to be funny. Should I just ignore her when she does this, or say that's not my name?
Oh, just ignore her.
Okay.
Yeah, just very simple. Just ignore her, and then she will eventually say mommy. Or if you have another child or someone else around, have them say mommy and attend to them when they say mommy, so that she can see that's the only name you're going to respond to.
Great. Love that. Okay, next one. Hi, ladies.
But having said that, it is kind of cute, and she might be trying to interact in a funny way, and that's fine. And keep that in mind, that going forward, she will want to develop some humor, and you might want to interact with her on a humorous level.
We love to build the humor muscle, don't we? It's a good thing too. Sense of humor helps with everything. Okay. Hi, ladies. My 4-year-old has periods when he's very engaged and answers questions, and then he will go through periods where he seems to be deaf and needs lots of prompts and seems to zone out, especially at school. What can I do to help him with the zoning out and being engaged? He was only approved for 15 hours of ABA. This is a tale that we're hearing so often now.
I know, it's terrible.
And they said, thank you so much, you guys. You guys give me hope for my son's future.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. That's wonderful. You need to do a little bit more investigating and find out what the differences are in the environments where he is paying attention and where he's not. So school could be the following things. For instance, he could be distracted by visual stimuli, so he could be in a place where it's very like, there's a window next to him, or I don't know, he's looking out the window, or he's distracted because there's too much sound. So that's another area you got to look at. The distance from which instruction is given. So if there's someone sitting right across from him and talking to him, he might be paying attention to that versus the teacher is far away and that's too distracting. Look at the sensory input aspects of both environments. Like what's different? You say he sometimes is completely turned on and sometimes he's completely off. Make sure that from a sensory input area, and also from a time. For instance, is one condition morning and another condition is afternoon? What are the exact differences? And another area that I want you to look at is also the content of the material. Sometimes our kids are spectacular at paying attention to things that they are interested in and not so good, and are spectacular at ignoring or blocking out things that they're not interested in. So is the content the same? Get all that information and then come back and let's talk about it, because what you'll want to make sure of first is that if you see big differences in the environments, you'll realize that this type of stuff in this environment, like for instance low lighting, or giving instruction from a near position, or there can't be too many distractors, or all of those things are the ones that are conducive to him paying attention, or maybe it's mornings, and these types of things are preventative to paying attention, and you want to try to help him by eliminating those environmental factors and modifying them so that it's an environment that's much more conducive for him. So for instance, I'm not gonna, if I have the TV on in my bedroom at night and all my kids are in the room, and they're all on their computers and they're all talking to me at the same time, that is not necessarily the best environment for me to write something, important, right? So I will find another environment, like a quiet space in my house where I can that's much more conducive to paying attention. Same thing for him. Help him find help him gain access to that environment. Now, and then the second thing is you need to, of course, identify, is he being selective? Is this in his control? Is he actually paying attention when he wants to and not when he doesn't? That happens often with children.
Yeah.
So that has mostly to do with the topic of the conversation,
And not just children on the spectrum.
Oh, everyone.
We should specify everybody, all
Absolutely.
kids have that.
Absolutely.
And adults as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the other thing is time of day, because a lot of times our kids are really on in the morning and really completely wiped out in the afternoon, which indicates to me that they're not sleeping well. He's not getting enough sleep. And of course, it's also possible things like, nutritionally, like some of my kids right after eating, you cannot talk to them they're just out. They're completely wiped, or right before eating because they have hypoglycemia. Right after, maybe because like all the blood rushes to their stomach and they're just completely tired. There are different things in the environment that we don't pay attention to, and it's really important to do that before you start doing a whole bunch of shaping to get his attention behaviorally.
Okay. Great. So you're going to be a detective and figuring out the clues, and you're going to check back with us to give us when you have more information about those different clues. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Longer question here, but very serious. Hello, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. Like always, it's a pleasure to watch your show. Thank you. My 8.5-year-old child with ASD was diagnosed late, has major behavior issues. His worst started around 6 years old. It escalated when he started saying and attempting suicidal threats. The most of serious, right? I took him to the psychiatrist. They started him on Concerta, now increased to 27 milligrams to help him in school due to his ADHD symptoms. They feel if he is better in school, his anxiety at home and behaviors will get better. Is this true? They feel the lack of services he has had is now causing his behaviors. He is very aggressive, throws tantrums when routine changes, and even after using the timer, he destroys property, throws things, kicks, bites, scratches, etc. I never wanted meds for my child, but I feel I have no choice. His mood swings are getting out of hand. We are on the waiting list for behavioral therapy. My almost 4-year-old with ASD also is very aggressive, but he is limited verbal. Both are very repetitive in routines, and it can be challenging. And she says, some advice, please.
Oh my gosh. Challenging?
Yeah.
It sounds like
Your hands are
unbelievably challenging.
full.
Yeah. I wish you were close to one of our centers. I would like to take your kids. You need help. First of all, there's no way on earth you can handle this on your own. You seriously need to get good services for both kids into your house right away. And, kudos to you for having handled it this far. There's a couple of little things, and I don't really want to comment too much. I do want to give you direction, but I don't want to. There's so much going on with your 8-year-old that it wouldn't be right for me to try to guide you in one or the other. But I will say that medications for ADHD will tend to make you more anxious because they're speed. They're amphetamines. They're even things that are, like Concerta and so on and so forth will tend to, on the one hand, take it yourself. Take it and see how it feels. It produces a little bit of anxiety because it will stimulate you, even though it's going to slow down. The reason these medications slow down our kids with ADHD is because they burn them out, essentially. So, experience it yourself. A child who's expressed suicidal behavior, I don't know if it's serious or not, but you should be both behaviorally and medically treating that. And medically, anxiety and depression are pretty much the same thing. Anxiety is an external, it's different. Depression is just, always occurs before anxiety anyway. And the medication is the same. It's the same exact medication. Antidepressants are used for anxiety, and you need to use an antidepressant. So I would really, really recommend trying to use some sort of serotonin reuptake inhibitor or serotonin and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, SSRIs, SNRIs, in order to help your child. I really would recommend that. Behaviorally, there's too many things going on, and you'd want to do a functional analysis. You'd want to have a provider who can actually help with determining whether the suicidal stuff is actually real from depression or is it attention seeking. And this is a difficult field. Most behaviorists will not really understand the depression side. They will be going towards, this is attention seeking and let's ignore it. And you want to be careful with that because what if it is real and it is coming from depression? A lot of his other activities will be able to help a psychologist, for instance, identify if there is true depression and if there is true anxiety. And so there, when I have 3 things going on, which is somewhat, you have 4 things going on with him, which is some of the symptoms of ASD, ADHD, depression, and anxiety. I'm really worried. I would want to see him myself. I wouldn't even give you one of our newer supervisors. I'd say there's so much going on. You need to kind of subdivide it all. So where do you live? I don't know where you are because I need to be able to give you more guidance than just that. For your 4-year-old, please get some services as well. And just hang tight, hang in there, because you really are someone that needs to have help.
So if you can write to us, let us know where you are, identify yourself as the parent in this case, let us know where you are, and you say that you're on the waiting list for service, so let us know who you're on the waiting list for. We'd love to know that you're getting good quality services.
Great.
Okay. Love this question. Hi, I'm a therapist and a mommy of a 10-month-old little boy. And my question is for Dr. Doreen. I observe my baby when he's playing, and he rarely responds to his name because he's so focused on play. His eye contact is good, he reaches for things he wants, and he loves to be cuddled. But the low response to his name worries me. Am I hypersensitive for red flags because I'm a therapist, or is this normal as a mom?
I love therapists. I went through what you're going through, obviously.
Yeah.
You're being a little hypersensitive. He's 10 months old. I don't, my gut says the following things. A, don't worry, give him another couple of months, and see what happens there. B, has he had ear infections? Is it possible that he's having a hard time hearing you? I don't know, have his ears checked just to calm you down a little bit. My general feeling is that you're being too sensitive about this. If he's engaged in something that he really likes, boys tend to ignore anyway when they're engaged. So just give him a little bit more time. You're a therapist, so I'm sure your expectations are higher, and I'm sure you're going to be teaching him a ton of stuff like I did with my kids when they're very young. But really, you don't need to be worried about that sort of stuff. Start teaching him things like pretend activities, like pretend play, and go on skills. You're a therapist. You love skills for 0 to 2. Go on skills, our website, and go into the 0 to 2. Oh my gosh, you'll have so much fun engaging him and doing other play. Our play curriculum for kids that young is spectacular. It'll give you tons and tons of ideas of little like peekaboo activities and types of things that you can do that. So as a therapist, that the more you become associated with a reinforcer, the more reinforcing you become, the more likely it is that he will immediately respond to you at any time. So do those things, and stop worrying about just that one thing of calling his name. Okay. Start getting him much more involved with other things.
Okay, great. Moving on. I scrolled up a little bit. Can you recommend any medications that could help with my child's obsessions and also will help him to sleep? He currently takes Intuitive and Statera in the morning.
Statera and Intuitive, yeah. And
melatonin at night. He used to take risperidone, but we are now not taking it.
Yeah. Well, if you're already on Intuitive and Statera, that's pretty high level, and I don't want to interfere with what it is your physician feels is appropriate. So I can't really comment on that, although you prompted me to mention that I'm in the process of speaking with a lovely developmental pediatrician. Did I tell you this, Shannon? I'm very, very excited about this, actually, and I hope that it happens, but I won't say her name yet because she's not on board with CARD yet. But it's a very wonderful lady who has been a developmental pediatrician for a very long time and is very involved in the field of autism, does all sorts of assessments and so on, and is also a BCBA, which is very, very, very rare. I think there's 2 in the country.
Wow.
Who are MDs and BCBAs. But to have a developmental pediatrician who's a BCBA, and she has asked to join CARD, and I'm just out of my mind excited about it. Yes. So hopefully we will soon have a physician to consult with our patients.
Oh, I love that.
Which is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
So I won't comment on the Intuitive and the Statera, and you're going to stay on those and talk to your physician about that. In terms of the melatonin for sleep, I've said this many times and I'll say it again. Melatonin on its own, I don't find to be effective. I have a very, very wonderful alternative that I've used for many years, and you can order it on Amazon. You can buy it in a lot of different places. I think I'm responsible for this thing becoming big, I swear. It's called Tranquil Sleep, and it's spectacular. It's a combination of melatonin, 5-HTP, which is tryptophan, and theanine. So I really, really recommend this thing because the combination is spectacular, and it comes in, it's chewable and it tastes good, and it comes in 3 milligram chewables. Yeah. So you can use 3 milligrams for a young child, and past the age of 12 or so, you can use 6 milligrams even.
Okay, remarkable. And I just lost my place because I was so busy looking at all these other things. But okay, here it is. Last question of the day. I have an exceptionally talented child who is in 2 public school sport activities. However, the coaches are overlooking his ability and will not allow him to actually participate much during the games. Please help me to write a letter asking them to allow him to play and not just be a part of the teams because of his IEP or the state requires students with disabilities to be a part of activities. And thank you so much for your time. time.
Gosh, that's so annoying. I can't even believe that. That's just discrimination.
It is.
I mean, it's so ridiculous. I'd be happy to help you write a letter. Given my time, I'm worried to do that, but let me think of a better way to do this. Perhaps ARG, our research group, can provide you with either a letter or some articles that go to this issue. Perhaps Julie could in public policy, I'm not sure, but why don't you just at least start with going to your IEP and telling them this particular thing and saying, this is discrimination.
Yeah.
And if you use the word discriminatory, trust me, everybody gets scared.
Yeah.
And they will allow him to play. And once they allow him to play, they'll see how good he is.
And I think it's always good to give people an example. Sometimes people just don't know, and they have fears, and they don't want to talk about what their fears are. But, Jason McElwain, who is seen all over Facebook, the young man who worked as the team manager of the basketball team, and then they finally put him into the game, and he threw some amazing shots all over Facebook.
Absolutely.
Bring something like that up to them. There have been so many cases of that.
There are so many of our kids who are just spectacular athletes, and it's ridiculous to me. It just makes me so angry that they're not given their chances.
But I think that's a great place to start. But we'll see if I'll talk to both Julie and I'll talk to ARG to see if they have some things, backup articles. But here's the issue: I don't have a way to get in touch with you other than this. So you'll need to send me an email or something so that I will be able to send that information to you. But I do think sometimes it just helps to show an example, and that will quiet the coach's fears, whatever they are.
I know, and it really does depend on, you're right, it does very much depend on who the people are that you're dealing with. I have found in some environments people are just, like Shannon said, just scared. And then I've also found, Shannon, unfortunately, in other environments, people are just biased. So you need to address that. And the IEP is a good place to start.
Okay. We are completely out of time. We have time. Do you have time? We have time, but do you have time?
I don't know. I can do one more, I guess.
Okay. One more. So, hi, ladies. Thank you for all you do. My son that just turned 4 seems disinterested when I take him to school and observe. His private speech therapist visited him at school and said he was just staring off during constructive play. The teachers tell me not to get concerned. It's just when he's bored he does this, and he probably is bored of toys. But I have seen him like this during circle time and other times. What should I reasonably expect from teachers to do for him? And she wrote BIP with a question mark. Does she need a behavior intervention plan for this staring off?
Well, I mean, yes, you can have a staring off BIP. It's not going to matter. I don't, I'm old school, and perhaps this is a bad thing because I've been around for such a long time that I have become a little bit negative. Right? I should probably be a little bit more positive, but my general impression is that teachers have too much to do, and that they're not able to address things that are, let's say, in our child's IEP, or that are not completely disruptive to the classroom. So they have their hands full trying to do that already, and so they can't as long as he's not disrupting anything, I think he'll end up getting this just ignored. And it's sad, but that's just my general impression. I might be completely wrong, because there's some teachers who are spectacular and they can handle 20, 25 kids really, really well on their own. I would recommend that if it's a big issue for you, you should call an IEP and ask for an aide. And I think he should have a one-to-one aide, and that would probably be the person who would help make sure that he's engaged and paying attention when he should be. And any parent will tell you that you pretty much have to be very assertive when it comes to getting these types of services. And again, if your school, the problem is that this is exactly the type of thing that school districts should fund. But I don't know what state you're in, and in California you'd probably get some coverage. I'm not sure what you'd get in other states, but this is where you should be pushing.
And it's so dicey, and I appreciate you saying all those things and how hard it is to advocate, because I know firsthand. But what we hear from a lot of parents is that the school district will do the path that's easiest for them. That
Right.
they'll say, well, if your child can't attend, and then they'll put them in a more restrictive environment.
Right.
I just want you guys to know information that I got, that you always have the right to ask for that functional behavior assessment to figure out why they're doing it, and you put it off on them. Then they have to get their BCBA. It costs them money to do that. It gives them busy work to do that will help your child ultimately, because you shouldn't, in my opinion, and please weigh in, you should never let them move your child's classroom without that stage, without seeing if there was something that they could have done to intervene.
Yeah, absolutely, and I totally agree. You should do the FBA and move forward with that. But then the problem becomes that once what schools do now is they have a one BCBA who consults, and that's the thing. The BCBA will perhaps write up a behavior intervention plan, but then nobody's going to really implement it.
Yeah.
So really the thing is, you do need to get that aid, and in order to get that aid, you will have to do the things Shannon just said.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going with that, is that if you're going to fight for the aid, you have to show them that they need it.
Right.
That it's them that's not getting the job done, not your child.
Right, exactly.
So, and that's a tough battle, but you can do it. I've done it, and if I can do it, I know for sure you can do it.